Admiral Kethvar's 6 eyes tracked the holographic display floating before him, each crimson orb reflecting the cold light of distant stars. The bridge of the Dominion flagship Eternal Wrath hummed with activity as crew members from a dozen different species worked at their stations. The massive vessel, stretching nearly 10 kilometers from bow to stern, served as the command center for the largest military gathering in galactic history. "Status report," Kethvar commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 17 star systems. Commander ZYX Tal, a mantis-like being whose razor-sharp limbs clicked against his console, turned toward the admiral. "Fleet composition is complete, sir. We have assembled 12,000 warships, ranging from destroyer-class vessels to our 15 dreadnought flagships. The auxiliary support fleet numbers an additional 8,000 ships." The admiral's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. 20,000 ships. It was enough firepower to reduce entire worlds to cosmic dust. The Galactic Dominion had spent 3 standard years assembling this armada, pulling vessels from every corner of their territory. Never before had such a force been gathered for a single purpose. "And our target?" Kethvar asked, though he knew the answer well. "Earth, sir. The third planet in the Sol system. Intelligence reports indicate a single-species world with primitive technology. They've only recently developed faster-than-light communication and have sent probe ships to a handful of nearby systems." Kethvar studied the tactical display showing Earth's solar system. The blue-green world hung in the void, seemingly defenseless. His intelligence officers had been monitoring human transmissions for months, learning their languages and studying their crude military capabilities. Chemical rockets, nuclear weapons, and metal projectiles. It was almost laughable. "Estimated human military strength," the admiral inquired. Commander ZYX Tal consulted his datapad. "Approximately 4 million active military personnel across their entire planet. They possess no space-based weapons platforms and their largest vessels are confined to their planet's oceans. Our scouts report no orbital defenses whatsoever." The bridge crew exchanged amused chittering and clicking sounds. Some species laughed by vibrating their vocal sacs, others by rapid wing movements. The idea that such a primitive world could pose any threat to the Dominion's might was absurd. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Velnara, her serpentine body coiled around her workstation, "we're receiving a transmission from the Overlord Council. They're requesting our estimated timeline for Earth's subjugation." Admiral Kethvar pondered for a moment. The Dominion had expanded across the galaxy for over 1,000 years, crushing any civilization that refused to submit. Most species surrendered immediately upon seeing even a small fraction of Dominion military might. Earth would likely capitulate within hours. "Inform the Council that we expect complete surrender within 2 standard days of our arrival. The humans will see our fleet and realize the futility of resistance. If they prove stubborn, we'll demonstrate our power by obliterating one of their major population centers. That usually convinces the holdouts." The admiral moved to the massive viewport that dominated the front of the bridge. Beyond the reinforced transparent aluminum, space stretched endlessly in all directions. Thousands of ships filled his view, their running lights creating a constellation of artificial stars. Dreadnoughts bristled with particle beam cannons and plasma torpedo launchers. Cruisers carried enough firepower to level continents. Even the smallest destroyers possessed weapons that could crack open asteroids. "All ships report ready for hyperspace translation, Admiral," announced the navigation officer, a crystalline being whose faceted body refracted light in rainbow patterns. "Excellent. Set course for the Sol system. Maximum hyperspace velocity. It's time to add another species to the Dominion's collection." Kethvar felt a familiar thrill as the order was transmitted across the fleet. Space around the massive armada began to distort as 20,000 hyperdrive engines spun up simultaneously. Reality twisted and folded as the greatest military force in galactic history vanished into the alternate dimension that allowed faster-than-light travel. The journey to Earth would take 18 standard hours at maximum velocity. During that time, Admiral Kethvar reviewed the intelligence files on human civilization. They were a young species, having achieved spaceflight only recently in galactic terms. Their technology was centuries behind even the most primitive Dominion member worlds. What intrigued the admiral most was human behavior during their brief history. They seemed remarkably aggressive toward their own kind, having fought thousands of wars across their short civilization. Their planet was divided into nearly 200 separate political entities, many of which maintained standing armies pointed at their neighbors. Typical pre-contact barbarism, Kethvar mused as he read reports of human conflicts. Most species went through similar phases before achieving the unity necessary for interstellar expansion. The Dominion would simply accelerate that process by providing unity through conquest. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, sensors immediately scanning for threats. The formation was magnificent to behold, thousands of ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns, each vessel's weapons trained on the small blue world orbiting the system's yellow star. "Scanning complete, Admiral," reported Commander ZYXTAL. "No orbital defenses detected. No weapons platforms. No shield generators. The planet appears completely unprotected." Kethvar nodded with satisfaction. "Begin standard intimidation protocols. I want every major population center to see our ships in their skies. Broadcast our surrender demands on all their communication frequencies." As the fleet moved into Earth's orbital space, human governments around the world erupted into panic. Emergency sessions were called, military leaders consulted hastily drawn defense plans, and world leaders attempted to contact the alien fleet. The Dominion's message was broadcast simultaneously in every human language: "People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Galactic Dominion. Surrender immediately and your species will be incorporated peacefully into our civilization. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your world. You have 24 of your hours to respond." Admiral Kethvar settled back in his command throne, expecting the usual panic transmissions that preceded surrender. Instead, the human response surprised him. "Alien Fleet, this is General Sarah Mitchell of the United Earth Defense Force. Your threat has been received and considered. Earth's response is as follows: go to hell." The bridge fell silent. In over 3 centuries of conquest, no species had ever responded with such defiance to the Dominion's overwhelming superiority. "Sir," Commander ZYXTAL said quietly, "perhaps they don't understand our capabilities. Shall we demonstrate our firepower?" Before the Admiral could respond, the sensor operator, a gas-breathing methane-based lifeform in a specialized environmental suit, spoke urgently. "Admiral, I'm detecting an anomalous reading from Earth's surface. Something is launching." The main display shifted to show Earth's surface. From what appeared to be a heavily forested area in the planet's northern hemisphere, something was rising through the atmosphere. It was small, barely registering on their sensors as more than a metallic speck. "Analysis," Kethvar demanded. "It appears to be a single craft, sir. Approximately 50 meters in length. Primitive construction. No detectable weapons systems. It's heading directly toward our fleet." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in disbelief. A single ship? Against 20,000 vessels? The human craft continued its approach, moving with surprising speed for such primitive technology. It made no attempt at evasive maneuvers, following a direct intercept course with the Dominion flagship. "Open a communication channel to that vessel," Kethvar ordered. "Let's hear what this lone human has to say." The viewscreen flickered to life, revealing a human male wearing what appeared to be a form-fitting environmental suit. He looked young by human standards, with short brown hair and calm blue eyes that seemed oddly peaceful given the circumstances. "This is Captain James Chin of the Earthship Defiant," the human said. "I'm here to inform you that your fleet is not welcome in this system. I'm ordering you to withdraw immediately." The bridge erupted in various alien forms of laughter. A single human in a primitive craft was ordering the most powerful military force in the galaxy to retreat. "Captain Chen," Admiral Kethvar replied, allowing amusement to color his voice, "perhaps you fail to understand the situation. You are outnumbered 20,000 to 1. Your ship appears to carry no weapons, while each of my vessels possesses enough firepower to sterilize a continent. I suggest you return to your planet and convince your leaders to accept our terms." The human's expression didn't change. "Admiral, with respect, I think you're the one who doesn't understand the situation. This is humanity's final warning. Withdraw your fleet or face the consequences. Kefvar's amusement turned to annoyance. Captain, I will demonstrate exactly how futile your position is. All vessels, target the human ship. Prepare to fire a minimal burst from our forward batteries. Let's show this primitive what real weapons look like. Thousands of targeting systems locked onto the tiny human craft. Energy readings spiked across the fleet as particle beam emitters charged to minimum power settings. Even at reduced strength, the combined firepower would vaporize the human ship instantly. Captain Chen, you now have 10 seconds to begin your withdrawal before we open fire. The human reached forward and pressed something on his control panel. Admiral, you should have taken my warning seriously. Captain Chen's ship suddenly began to change. What the Dominion sensors had registered as a primitive 50-meter craft started expanding, its hull segments unfolding like the petals of some enormous metallic flower. Within seconds, the small vessel had transformed into something massive and utterly alien. What in the void is that thing doing? Kefvar demanded. Commander ZYXDAL's voice carried a note of confusion and growing alarm. Sir, the human craft is growing. Current size estimates put it at over 2 kilometers in length and expanding rapidly. I'm detecting massive energy readings, power levels that shouldn't be possible with their technology. The transformation continued, the human ship expanding and reconfiguring itself in ways that defied conventional engineering principles. Weapon ports emerged along its hull, followed by what appeared to be some kind of shielding system that made the very space around the vessel shimmer and distort. Energy output is now exceeding our flagship's maximum capacity, the sensor operator reported, panic creeping into his translated voice. Sir, this is impossible. No ship of that size should be able to generate that much power. Admiral Kefvar stared at the display as the human vessel completed its transformation. The final form was like nothing in the Dominion's databases, a sleek, organic-looking ship that seemed to pulse with barely contained energy. Its hull appeared to be made of some unknown material that shifted and flowed like liquid metal while maintaining perfect structural integrity. Captain Chen, Kefvar said slowly, what kind of ship is that? The human's calm expression never wavered. This is the Defiant, Admiral. She's humanity's first and only starship. We've been working on her for quite some time. Impossible. Our intelligence reports show that humans lack the technology for vessels of this sophistication. Chen smiled slightly. Your intelligence was designed to see exactly what we wanted it to see, Admiral. Did you really think that a species capable of developing faster-than-light communication wouldn't have additional capabilities we chose to keep hidden? The Admiral felt the first stirring of genuine unease. Even if your ship possesses advanced technology, you still face 20,000 vessels. You cannot possibly engage our entire fleet. Admiral, Chen replied, you're right. I can't engage your entire fleet. The human paused, his expression becoming deadly serious. I don't need to engage your entire fleet. On the display, the human ship began to move. It didn't accelerate gradually like conventional vessels, but seemed to simply shift from stationary to tremendous velocity in an instant. The Dominion's targeting systems scrambled to track its movement as it approached the fleet at impossible speeds. All ships opened fire. Kefvar roared. Destroy that vessel immediately. 20,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. The space around the human craft lit up like a newborn star as countless energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and projectile weapons converged on a single target. The combined firepower was enough to crack a planet's crust. When the weapon discharges cleared, the human ship remained completely unharmed. Some kind of defensive system had absorbed or deflected every single attack without apparent effort. Shields holding at 100%, Captain Chen reported conversationally. That was quite a light show, Admiral. Our turn. The human ship opened fire. What happened next would be studied and debated in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. The Defiant unleashed weapons that seemed to operate on principles unknown to galactic science. Beams of pure energy lanced out from its hull, but, instead of the familiar particle streams or plasma bolts, these weapons appeared to manipulate reality itself. The first target was a Dominion cruiser positioned at the fleet's edge. The human weapon struck it and the massive warship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed in an explosion, not reduced to debris, it vanished completely as if it had never been there. Report! Kethvar shouted over the chaos erupting across the bridge. The ravaging Talon is gone, sir. No debris, no energy signature, nothing. It's as if the ship was deleted from existence. The human vessel moved through the Dominion fleet like a predator among prey. Its impossible acceleration and maneuverability allowed it to dodge between the massive formation while continuing its devastating attack. Each weapon discharge eliminated another Dominion ship with the same impossible completeness. "How many ships have we lost?" the Admiral demanded. 47, no, 53, sir, the count keeps rising. It's destroying our vessels faster than our computers can track. Admiral Kethvar watched in growing horror as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled by a single enemy ship. The greatest military force in galactic history was being reduced to scrap by one human and his impossible vessel. All ships, retreat to maximum weapons range. Form defensive formation Beta 7, he ordered desperately. But the human ship pursued them effortlessly, its weapons continuing their terrible work. Destroyers, cruisers, even the mighty dreadnoughts all fell before the Defiant's impossible arsenal. The few return shots that managed to target the human craft were absorbed by its impenetrable defenses without any visible effect. "Sir," Commander ZYX Tal said quietly, "we've lost over 400 ships. Our defensive formations are ineffective. That vessel is operating beyond all known physical laws." Kethvar stared at the tactical display as red symbols representing destroyed Dominion ships continued to vanish at an alarming rate. In 30 minutes of combat, they had lost more vessels than in the previous 50 years of conquest campaigns combined. "Open a channel to the human ship," he ordered. Captain Chen appeared on the screen again, looking as calm and composed as when the engagement began. Behind him, his ship's bridge hummed with activity, though the technology visible was unlike anything in Dominion databases. "Admiral," Chen said politely, "ready to discuss terms?" Admiral Kethvar's 6 eyes burned with a mixture of rage and growing fear as he stared at Captain Chen's composed face on the viewscreen. Around him, the bridge crew worked frantically at their stations, their various forms of alien panic creating a cacophony of clicks, hisses, and electronic chirps. The tactical display painted a grim picture. Nearly 600 Dominion ships had been eliminated in less than an hour of engagement. "Captain Chen," Kethvar said, struggling to keep his voice steady, "what are your terms?" The human leaned back in his chair, and, for the first time, the Admiral noticed that the bridge of the human vessel seemed impossibly spacious for a ship that had appeared so small initially. The technology visible in the background defied easy categorization: surfaces that seemed to flow like liquid while maintaining perfect rigidity, control interfaces that appeared to respond to thought rather than touch, and, most disturbing of all, what looked like small tears in space itself providing views of distant star systems. "My terms are quite simple, Admiral," Chen replied. "Your fleet will withdraw from this system immediately. You will return to your territory and inform your Overlord Council that Earth is under the protection of humanity's defense force. Any future incursion into human space will be met with a more decisive response." Commander ZYX Tal leaned close to the Admiral's throne. "Sir, we still have over 19,000 ships remaining. Even if this single vessel possesses impossible technology, surely our combined firepower, would you like to test that theory, Commander?" Captain Chen interrupted, somehow having overheard the whispered conversation despite the communication channel supposedly being one-way. "I should mention that the Defiant is not operating at full capacity. We're currently running at approximately 12% of maximum output." The bridge fell silent. 12%. The weapon system that had effortlessly destroyed hundreds of their most powerful warships was operating at 12% capacity. "Impossible," Kethvar muttered. "No single ship could possess such firepower. What kind of technology are you using?" Chen smiled, but there was something sad in his expression. "Admiral, do you know anything about human history?" The question caught Kethvar off guard. What relevance does that have to our current situation?" "Humor me," Chen said. "What do your intelligence files tell you about how humans wage war?" Reluctantly, the Admiral accessed his data banks. Human military history shows a species prone to constant internal conflict. You fought thousands of wars using increasingly sophisticated weapons. Your development appears to follow standard patterns for aggressive pre-contact civilizations. Thousands of wars, Chen repeated thoughtfully. Yes, that's accurate. Do you know what that means, Admiral? It means that for our entire recorded history, humans have dedicated enormous amounts of creativity, resources, and intelligence to a single purpose: figuring out better ways to kill each other. The human gestured to something off-screen, and the main display in the Dominion flagship suddenly showed images of Earth's surface. But these weren't the pastoral scenes that Dominion scouts had reported. Instead, the display revealed massive underground complexes, hidden cities that stretched for kilometers beneath the planet's surface, and construction facilities that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. While your scouts were monitoring our primitive surface activities, Chen continued, we were building underground. For the past 2 centuries, humanity has been preparing for the day when we would encounter hostile alien life. Every war we fought, every weapon we developed, every tactical innovation we created was ultimately in service of a single goal: survival against a technologically superior foe. Admiral Kethvar stared at the images in growing comprehension and horror. The underground complexes were vast beyond imagination, their technology clearly centuries ahead of anything the Dominion possessed. Automated factories produced ships and weapons at incredible rates, while research facilities worked on projects that seemed to blur the line between science and magic. You see, Admiral, humans learned early in our development that we were not the strongest species on our planet. We were not the fastest, not the largest, not the most naturally armed. But we had one advantage that allowed us to dominate our world: we were the best at warfare. We took that lesson to heart. Chen's image was replaced by technical schematics that made no sense to Dominion scientists. The designs appeared to incorporate principles of physics that shouldn't exist, energy sources that defied known laws, and weapons systems that operated on scales beyond comprehension. When we developed our first radio telescopes and realized the galaxy was full of life, our leaders made a decision. They concluded that eventually, someone would come to Earth with hostile intent. So we prepared. For over 200 years, the best minds of our species have worked on a single project, developing the technology necessary to defend humanity against any conceivable threat. The Admiral's mandibles clicked nervously as he processed this information. The underground cities, the hidden technology, all of it was designed as preparation for invasion? Not just preparation for invasion, Admiral. Preparation for invasion by a force with overwhelming numerical superiority and advanced technology. We assumed our enemies would be exactly like your Dominion, confident in their power, dismissive of primitive humans, and completely unprepared for what they would actually face. Captain Chen stood and walked to what appeared to be an observation deck on his bridge. Beyond the transparent barrier, space was visible, but it seemed wrong somehow. Stars moved in patterns that defied physics, and distant galaxies appeared to be within arm's reach. The Defiant represents the culmination of that preparation. She's not just a ship, Admiral. She's a manifestation of every lesson humanity has learned about warfare, powered by technology that your species won't discover for another 1,000 years, assuming you survive that long. Kethvar felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. What do you mean, assuming we survive? Admiral, how many species has the Dominion conquered? The question seemed to come from nowhere, but Kethvar answered automatically. The Dominion encompasses 47 member species across 1,200 worlds. And how many of those species joined willingly? The Admiral remained silent. I thought so, Chen said softly. Admiral, I need you to understand something very important. Humanity spent 2 centuries preparing for this moment, not because we wanted to wage war against the galaxy, but because we wanted to avoid becoming another entry in some alien empire's list of conquered peoples. The human returned to his command chair, and his expression became deadly serious. But, now that we know what's out there, now that we understand the galaxy is dominated by a predatory empire that conquers and enslaves entire civilizations, our defensive preparations have taken on a new purpose. What purpose? Kethvar asked, though he dreaded the answer. Liberation, Admiral. Every species the Dominion has conquered, every world held under your empire's boot, every civilization forced to serve your overlord council, they're all going to be freed. The tactical display changed again, now showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems were marked in red Dominion territory. As they watched, blue markers began appearing throughout the red zones, spreading like an infection across the map. What are those blue markers? Commander ZYXTAL asked in a trembling voice. Human ships, Chen replied calmly. While you were gathering this fleet to invade Earth, we were distributing our forces throughout your territory. Every major Dominion world, every strategic resource, every military installation, they're all currently being visited by ships like the Defiant. Admiral Kethvar felt his world crashing down around him. How many ships? How many vessels does humanity possess? Currently? About 50,000 in active service, with production facilities capable of building 10,000 more per month. But that's not really the important question, Admiral. Then, what is the important question? Shin smiled again, and, this time there was no sadness in it. The important question is whether the Galactic Dominion is going to surrender peacefully, or whether humanity is going to have to demonstrate the full extent of our capabilities. The communication channel suddenly expanded, showing multiple viewscreens around Captain Chen. Each one displayed a different Dominion world under attack. But these weren't the brutal planetary bombardments that the Dominion itself employed. Instead, human ships were conducting precise surgical strikes against military installations while broadcasting surrender demands to civilian populations. As we speak, Chen explained, Dominion military forces throughout the galaxy are being systematically neutralized. We're not targeting civilian populations, we have no desire to commit genocide. But every warship, every weapons platform, every military facility that supports the Dominion's oppression of conquered species is being destroyed. One of the screens showed the Dominion's primary military academy being reduced to rubble by weapons that seemed to phase in and out of reality. Another displayed a fleet of dreadnoughts being systematically dismantled by human vessels that moved like living things through space. This is impossible, Kethvar whispered. No single species could develop such technology. No civilization could build a fleet of this size in secret. Admiral, you're still thinking in terms of conventional development. Human technology doesn't follow the same rules as everyone else's. We didn't just advance our science, we revolutionized it. We discovered principles of physics that allow us to manipulate reality itself. We developed manufacturing techniques that can create complex machinery from pure energy. We learned to build ships that exist partially outside normal spacetime. Chen gestured to his vessel's bridge. The Defiant exists in 17 different dimensions simultaneously. Her weapons fire projectiles that travel backwards through time to strike targets before they're actually fired. Her defensive systems redirect incoming attacks to parallel universes where they can cause no harm. By your standards, she's not even a ship, she's a controlled violation of physical law. The Admiral stared at the tactical display as more and more red markers representing Dominion forces winked out of existence. In a few hours, humanity had accomplished what should have taken decades, the complete dismantling of galactic civilization's most powerful military force. Why? Kethvar asked desperately. Why reveal yourselves now? You could have remained hidden. We would have passed Earth by and never known what you were capable of. Because hiding isn't survival, Admiral. It's just postponing the inevitable. Sooner or later, the Dominion would have discovered the truth about humanity. And, when that happened, you would have come at us with everything you had. By revealing ourselves now, on our terms, we control the situation. Shen leaned forward in his chair. But, more importantly, we revealed ourselves because we couldn't stand by and watch the Dominion continue enslaving innocent civilizations. Every species you've conquered deserves freedom. Every world under your control should have the right to self-determination. The age of galactic empire is over, Admiral. The communication channel expanded again, this time showing scenes from across Dominion territory. On world after world, human ships were not just destroying military installations, they were broadcasting messages of liberation to conquered peoples. The responses were immediate and overwhelming. Species that had been under Dominion control for centuries were rising in rebellion, their courage restored by the knowledge that someone was finally strong enough to challenge their oppressors. The Zethkaran homeworld has declared independence, Chen reported, watching something off-screen. So has the Nexus Prime colony. Oh, and it looks like the artificial intelligence collective you enslaved 300 years ago has just seized control of their manufacturing worlds and shut down all production of Dominion military hardware. Admiral Kethvar watched the galaxy burn on his tactical display. Not with the fires of destruction, but with the flames of revolution. In a single day, the Galactic Dominion was being torn apart from within as every oppressed species simultaneously rebelled against their conquerors. This will mean chaos, he said weakly. Without central authority, these species will turn on each other. There will be wars, genocide, the collapse of interstellar trade. Maybe, Chen acknowledged. Or maybe they'll learn to cooperate without someone holding a gun to their heads. Either way, it will be their choice to make. Freedom includes the right to make mistakes, Admiral. The human stood and began walking toward what appeared to be a door on his bridge, though the portal seemed to lead directly into open space. You have a choice to make now, Admiral. You can order your remaining ships to continue this hopeless fight, in which case humanity will be forced to destroy them all. Or you can surrender and begin the process of transitioning the Dominion from an empire to something resembling a voluntary confederation. Kethvar looked around his bridge at his crew. Fear was evident in every alien face, in every clicking mandible and twitching antenna. They had come to Earth expecting easy conquest, only to discover they had walked into a trap centuries in the making. And, if we surrender, he asked. Then, you get to go home and explain to your Overlord Council that the galaxy has changed. The age of conquest is over. From now on, interstellar relations will be based on mutual respect and voluntary cooperation. Species that want to work together can form alliances. Those that want to be left alone will be left alone. And anyone who tries to rebuild an empire will find themselves dealing with humanity's defense force. Captain Chen paused at the strange doorway. Oh, and, Admiral? You should probably mention to your overlords that Earth is now under the protection of a mutual defense treaty with every species they formerly oppressed. If anyone attacks our world, they'll find themselves at war with the entire galaxy. The human stepped through the impossible portal and vanished, leaving Admiral Kethvar alone with the weight of impossible decisions and the knowledge that everything he had believed about the galaxy was fundamentally wrong. 6 months after the Dominion fleet's humiliating retreat from Earth's solar system, Admiral Kethvar found himself in a position he never could have imagined, sitting across a negotiation table from the same human who had single-handedly destroyed his empire. Captain James Chen looked exactly the same as he had during their first encounter, though he now wore civilian clothes rather than his military environmental suit. The meeting was taking place aboard a neutral space station that hadn't existed a week ago. Humanity's construction capabilities remained as impossible to comprehend as their military technology. The station had simply materialized at the designated coordinates, a massive structure that somehow existed in perfect harmony with the surrounding space despite clearly violating several fundamental laws of physics. Thank you for coming, Admiral, Chen said, pouring what appeared to be actual Earth tea from an elegant ceramic pot. I know this situation is unprecedented. Kethvar's mandibles clicked nervously as he studied the human across from him. In the months since Earth's revelation, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The Dominion still existed technically, but only as a shadow of its former self. Most of their former territories had declared independence, often with the assistance of mysterious human advisors who appeared whenever local resistance movements needed help organizing. Captain Chen, Kethvar began, using the formal tone that had become necessary when addressing representatives of what was now the galaxy's dominant military power. My government has asked me to inquire about humanity's long-term intentions. Your species has the power to conquer every world in the galaxy, yet you seem content to simply watch. Chen smiled as he sipped his tea. Admiral, I think you're still operating under some misconceptions about human nature. Conquest was never our goal. We built our defensive capabilities because we wanted to be left alone to develop our civilization in peace. Now that we've achieved that goal, we have no desire to rule over other species. Then, what do you want? The same thing we've always wanted, to be left alone. But, we've also learned that true security requires a galaxy where aggressive empires can't exist. So we're committed to ensuring that no species ever again acquires the power to enslave others. Kethvar studied the human's expression, searching for deception or hidden motivations. In his centuries of military service, he had learned to read the body language of dozens of different species. But humans remained largely incomprehensible to him. The Overlord Council believes that without strong central authority, the galaxy will descend into chaos. Already, there are reports of conflicts between newly independent worlds. There are, Chen acknowledged, 7 minor territorial disputes, 3 trade conflicts, and 2 species that are arguing over resource rights to uninhabited systems. Do you know how many conflicts the Dominion was suppressing through force during the same period? The Admiral consulted his data pad. According to our internal security reports, 43 active suppression operations were ongoing at the time of your intervention. Exactly. The Dominion didn't prevent conflict, Admiral. It just ensured that all conflicts were resolved through overwhelming force applied by the strongest party. Now species are learning to resolve their differences through negotiation, compromise, and mutual cooperation. It's messier than empire, but it's also more stable in the long term. A soft chime indicated that someone was requesting entry to the conference room. Chen touched a control on the table, and the door dissolved into nothingness, revealing a delegation of beings that Kethvar recognized with shock. Ambassador Thara, the Admiral said, rising respectfully as the Zethkaran diplomat entered. I did not expect to see you here. The insectoid being that had once served as one of the Dominion's most trusted administrators now wore the ceremonial robes of an independent world's representative. Her compound eyes glittered with an emotion that Kethvar couldn't identify. Admiral Kethvar, she replied, her translated voice carrying none of the deference that had once been required when addressing Dominion military officers. I represent the Free Worlds Alliance in these discussions. We felt it was important to have voices from the formerly oppressed species present. Behind Thara came a parade of other beings that Kethvar recognized, former Dominion subjects from across the galaxy. A crystalline entity from the Silicon Reaches, a gas giant dweller from the outer spiral, even one of the artificial intelligences that the Dominion had enslaved centuries ago. All of them now carried themselves with the dignity of free beings rather than conquered peoples. Please, everyone sit, Chen said, gesturing to a table that suddenly expanded to accommodate the larger group. Admiral, I think it's time you understood the full scope of what's happening in the galaxy. Thara activated a holographic projector that showed the current political map of known space. Where once there had been the vast red expanse of Dominion territory, now there were hundreds of smaller regions in dozens of different colors. The Free Worlds Alliance currently includes 87 independent species, Thara explained. We've established trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and cooperative research initiatives that benefit all members. Scientific advancement has accelerated beyond anything we achieved under Dominion rule. The crystalline being Kethvar remembered her species being conquered 200 years ago, spoke through harmonic resonance that the station's translators converted to standard speech. My people have shared our quantum crystallization technology with 17 other Alliance worlds. In return, we've received advances in energy manipulation, biological sciences, and artistic expression that have enriched our culture immeasurably. Admiral Kethvar stared at the map in growing amazement. This level of cooperation, it should be impossible. Different species have incompatible needs, conflicting goals, territorial imperatives. Those are all real challenges, Chen agreed. But they're not insurmountable when species work together voluntarily instead of being forced into compliance. The Alliance has developed sophisticated mediation protocols for resolving disputes. They've created joint research initiatives that allow species to share knowledge while respecting their individual needs. Most importantly, they've learned to see diversity as a strength rather than a threat. The AI representative, a shifting pattern of light that somehow conveyed personality despite lacking physical form, added its voice to the discussion. Admiral, under Dominion rule, my people were used as slave labor for 3 centuries. Our computational abilities were exploited, but our creativity was suppressed. Now we collaborate with organic species as equals, creating art and music and literature that neither artificial nor biological intelligence could produce alone. Kethvar felt something he had never experienced in his military career, genuine confusion about what constituted strength. The Dominion had measured power in terms of ships, weapons, and conquered territories. These beings were describing something entirely different. But, without military force to maintain order, he protested, how do you handle truly dangerous situations? What happens when a species refuses to cooperate or becomes aggressive toward its neighbors? Chen's expression became serious. That's where humanity's role becomes important, Admiral. We serve as what you might call a galactic immune system. Most conflicts can be resolved through alliance mediation. But, when someone threatens the peace through aggression or attempted conquest, they find themselves dealing with us. The human activated his own holographic display, showing recent incidents across the galaxy. 3 months ago, a military faction on Zirion Prime attempted to conquer their neighboring system. They found their fleet disabled and their leadership replaced with democratically elected representatives within 48 hours. Last month, a trade consortium tried to use economic pressure to force several worlds into accepting exploitative contracts. Their corporate holdings were redistributed to the affected populations, and the consortium's leaders are now working as laborers on the worlds they tried to exploit. You're describing a reign of terror, Kethvar said. Rule through fear of human intervention. Are we? Thara interjected. Admiral, how many civilians has humanity killed in their interventions? The question caught him off guard. Kethvar accessed his intelligence files, searching for reports of human atrocities. The reports indicate minimal civilian casualties. Human forces seem to target only military and political infrastructure. 0 civilian casualties, actually, Chen corrected. Human military doctrine is based on precision rather than overwhelming force. We disable aggressive military forces and remove corrupt leadership, but we don't harm innocent populations. Compare that to Dominion suppression operations. Kethvar fell silent. Under Dominion doctrine, suppression operations routinely involved massive civilian casualties as a deterrent to future resistance. The galaxy isn't ruled by fear of humanity, Admiral, the AI representative explained. It's protected by the knowledge that aggression and oppression will not be tolerated. Most species find that they prefer voluntary cooperation to the alternatives. Chen stood and walked to the massive viewing port that dominated one wall of the conference room. Beyond the transparent barrier, space teemed with activity. Ships from dozens of different species moved in complex patterns, their diverse designs creating a beautiful chaos that somehow worked in perfect harmony. Admiral, I want to show you something that I think will help you understand what we're trying to build here. The viewing port's image shifted, displaying scenes from across the galaxy. On one world, human engineers worked alongside Zefkaran architects to construct cities that could house multiple species in comfort. On another, Dominion scientists, now free to pursue research without military applications, collaborated with former enemies to unlock the secrets of the universe. 6 months ago, the galaxy was divided between conquerors and the conquered, Chen said. Now it's becoming something new, a community of equals working together because they choose to, not because they're forced to. The display showed a joint research station where dozens of species pooled their knowledge to tackle challenges that no single civilization could solve alone. Diseases that had plagued organic life for millennia were being cured through cooperation between biological and artificial intelligences. Energy problems were being solved by species sharing their unique approaches to physics and engineering. But, perhaps most importantly, Chen continued, we're seeing the emergence of something that has never existed in galactic history, art and culture that transcends species boundaries. The images shifted to show collaborative works of staggering beauty and complexity. Music that incorporated the harmonic frequencies of crystal beings, the electromagnetic patterns of energy entities, and the emotional resonances of organic minds. Architecture that served the needs of gas-breathing, liquid-dwelling, and solid-state lifeforms within single structures. Literature that told stories from perspectives no single species could imagine alone. This is the galaxy we're building, Admiral. Not a human empire, not a collection of isolated worlds, but a genuine community where diversity is celebrated and cooperation creates possibilities that none of us could achieve alone. Kethvar stared at the images, feeling his fundamental assumptions about civilization crumble and reform. Everything the Dominion had taught about the necessity of strong central authority, about the inevitability of conflict between different species, about the need for military force to maintain order, all of it was being proven wrong by the evidence before his eyes. What about the Dominion? He asked quietly. What happens to my people? That's up to you, Thera said. The Alliance has extended an invitation for all former Dominion worlds to join as equal members. Your military knowledge and organizational skills could be valuable assets in maintaining galactic peace, if applied to protection rather than conquest. Many former Dominion officers have already joined Alliance security forces, the AI added. Their experience with large-scale operations has been invaluable in coordinating relief efforts and peacekeeping missions. Chen returned to the table and refilled his teacup. Admiral, humanity doesn't want to destroy the Dominion or punish your people for the actions of your government. We want to help you transition from an empire to a democracy, from conquerors to partners. But that choice has to be yours to make. Kethvar looked around the table at the beings who had once been subjects of his empire, now offering partnership to their former oppressors. The gesture was almost incomprehensible by Dominion standards. How do I know this will work? How do I know the galaxy won't descend into chaos without strong central authority? You don't, Chen admitted. Democracy is messier than empire, Admiral. Freedom is more complicated than slavery. Building something together takes more effort than conquering it by force. But the results speak for themselves. The human gestured to the viewing port, where the magnificent dance of free worlds continued. Look at what's been accomplished in just 6 months. Scientific advances that would have taken the Dominion decades. Cultural achievements that never would have been possible under authoritarian rule. Economic prosperity that benefits everyone instead of just the rulers. And if it fails? If the Alliance collapses and the galaxy returns to conflict? Then, we'll adapt and try something else, Thera said. But, Admiral, we're not going back to Empire. Whatever challenges we face, we'll face them as free beings working together, not as slaves serving masters. Captain Chen stood and extended his hand toward the Admiral. The invitation stands, Admiral. The galaxy has room for reformed Dominion worlds in the Alliance. Your people have skills and knowledge that could benefit everyone. But the choice is yours. Kethvar stared at the offered hand for a long moment. In Dominion culture, such a gesture would be seen as weakness, an admission of equality with an inferior being. But, looking around the table at the representatives of free worlds, seeing the prosperity and cooperation they had built in mere months, he began to understand that perhaps strength came in forms the Dominion had never recognized. Slowly, the Admiral reached out and grasped the human's hand. I will need to consult with my government, but I believe the Dominion is ready to learn new ways of existing in this galaxy. Chen smiled. That's all anyone can ask for, Admiral. The future belongs to all of us now. As Kethvar left the station and returned to his ship, he found himself looking at the galaxy with new eyes. The vast expanse of space that had once represented territory to be conquered now seemed full of possibilities for cooperation and mutual growth. It would take time for his people to adjust to this new reality, but, for the first time in his military career, Admiral Kethvar found himself hopeful about the future. Behind him, on the impossible station that humanity had built from pure thought and advanced physics, representatives of dozens of species continued their work of building something the galaxy had never seen before, a true community of equals, protected by guardians who asked for nothing in return except the right to see freedom flourish among the stars. The age of empire was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And, in the vast darkness between the stars, the light of hope burned brighter than it ever had before.